I love computers. It's been 12 years since I got into the whole custom PC building scene. Since then, I've been following the whole custom PC market very curiously, seeing innovation do its thing. Also, this guy has been a big influence and a source of inspiration over the last 8 years. Let me tell you some more stories while I unbox the parts for my new PC. This is going to be a happy day. Over the last decade, I have built a couple dozen computers for my friends, fixing dead computers and salvaging old hardware from different computers and building excruciatingly slow computers out of them. This is one of my most prized possessions, the Intel Pentium 3. This is a 22-year-old processor, which still works by the way, just that it's really slow for today's standards. I even got my hands on one of these NVIDIA processing dies. It's just the die. I had it for a couple of days and then I had to give it back. It was really cool while I had it. Even though I got to build computers for my friends and repair old computers, I never really built a proper computer for myself until now. Here's the summary of the parts. A Ryzen 5 2600, a 6-core 12-thread processor. For its price, it's a beast for productivity and light gaming. 16GB of DDR4 3200 MHz RAM, a GTX 1050 Ti with 4GB of VRAM, a Samsung 860 EVo SSD. This is an absolute must. Every computer today needs an SSD. Corsair Carbide 100R case, and lastly an ASUS B350 motherboard. Had to get the BIOS updated before I could use the R5 2600. Oh, and these are some cheap LED fans from AliExpress. Links in the description. Now before we put together all the parts inside the case, we need to make sure all the components work, and hence it's a common norm to build the PC outside the computer case, with just the CPU, motherboard and the memory. I put the motherboard on the motherboard box. I carefully inserted the CPU into its socket, mounted the CPU cooler which was included in the box, and it also comes with the thermal paste pre-applied. Next, I put the 2 sticks of RAM into the color-coded RAM slots to make use of the dual channel. I also used a spare graphics card for the video output. Plugged in the 24-pin power connector and the 8-pin CPU power connector, and it was time. The first boot is a big deal. I crossed my fingers and turned on the computer by shorting the 2 power pins on the motherboard, and it began. The anxiousness peaks, your brain goes into overdrive, and you start thinking about how you're gonna have to go for depression therapy if it does not turn on. And it turns on and you dance behind the camera to celebrate. Now it's time to put these components into the case. That goes something like this. You start with installing the I/O shield for the motherboard, screwing in the motherboard with the right number of standoffs and the right type of screws, installing the graphics card into the PCIe slot, putting in the SSD into the toolless drive cage, plugging in the cables for the power button, reset button, the indicator LEDs, the front panel USB 3 connector, and the front panel audio connector. Next, you install the power supply, plug in the 24-pin and the 8-pin power connectors, plug the SATA cable for the SSD and the SATA power connector. After tidying up the cables to some extent, you're done. Plug in the power cable, press the power button, and she comes alive. I had a lot of fun building this computer. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I plan to use this PC for video post-production, photo editing, gaming, and game streaming at some point. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked the video. Thanks for watching, and go build your next computer.